Hello, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Infinity Train, Book 3, which we'll be talking about today. I'm your host, Alex Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Michelle Andrew.
Hello.
And April Collins.
Hi there.
Today we are discussing episodes 6, 7, and 8 of Book 3, the Campfire Car, the Canyon of the Golden Winged Snakes Car, and the Hey Ho Whoa car. You can find our discussion on the first half of Book 3, which aired last week at overlyanimated.com. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. And wherever you listen to us, we appreciate any ratings and reviews and comments you want to leave us. But yeah, here we are again. In the second drop of this season, we have episodes 9 and 10 to look forward to next week. So this is our middle grouping of episodes, and one full of different goings on. Continuing the roller coaster that has been this train. Let's begin with the general feelings about these newest episodes and where we're at with this season. Let's go to Michelle first. How are you feeling after watching these 3 new episodes?
Honestly, I feel a little better watching the end of these than the last drop, and maybe it's because I'm more used to the tone of this season. Or something. I don't know if that's a hot take compared to you guys, but I actually do feel slightly better. Part of that, honestly, is that I didn't expect to stan Amelia, reformed Amelia so hard, but I totally do, and now I feel way more confident that Hazel and Grace are gonna be okay because Amelia's more or less on their side. So initially I was oh no, is Grace gonna be able to stop Simon if he tries to wheel Hazel? But now it's nah, Amelia's there. She's got that belt. I think it's gonna be okay. But I mean, I really didn't anticipate us meeting Amelia so soon. I didn't imagine Simon was gonna say go back to the cat so quickly. A lot of the directions this took were really not what I was expecting, which was kind of nice. I mean, I got really broken up about the funeral though, so I'm sure we'll talk about it. But in general, I really enjoyed these. I think just as painful as the last few, but I mean, I am kind of wondering at this point how they're going to close up everything, which I remember talking about that a lot the first season. How are they going to conclude all this in 2 more episodes? And they managed to. I'm just really wondering how that's going to work here, because it feels like there's so many loose ends still.
Okay. Thank you for that. April, let's go to you now. How are you feeling about these episodes?
Well, I wasn't really expecting to be punched in the feelings, but that happened with the campfire car. Again, I know we'll have a lot to say about that episode in particular, but I'm excited Amelia's back and that we get to see her, and she's just crazy and I love it. Also, I'm very scared of Simon because
yes,
I have no idea what he's going to do now. Especially after the end of Hey Ho Wo Car, that kind of hurt too, a little bit. I just could only imagine his sense of betrayal. So there's a lot going on, and I agree with Michelle that I don't really know how everything's going to be wrapped up this season. But again, that happened in the first season, and so but they ended up doing it nicely in 2 episodes. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how this wraps up and where we go. What is Grace's number? I need to know. So
what if it's 13 or something by the end of the season? Wouldn't that be crazy?
That's what I'm expecting. She's gonna take her glove off and it's gonna be 2.
Yeah, I will say my general thoughts on this group was Well, first of all, the campfire car is the episode that most impressed me. I think that's so far the best episode of the season to me, at least. Like the emotions that it got me to feel, and just the general vibe, switching between grief and dread. It was all great. The other two episodes, I enjoy Amelia coming back. I like bringing her back, especially it's more because like we've been talking about like when is she gonna show up? Like we could like feel it, so it's just good to finally have it here. There's a lot of needing to catch up, Simon and Grace, on what the train actually is, even though like we, the viewers, already know it, which is always a tough task to do interestingly. Yeah. So like that kind of like pulls a little bit of the excitement out of those episodes for me. But at least episode 8 ends on, digging into the broken psyche of Simon's, which is like, well, this is going down a dark, dark path, and I'm scared for episode 9. So I'm like, it wasn't as exciting necessarily as last week's first batch. I mean, we had been waiting for so long for season 3, so like it's hard to match that. But like, I do think that this grouping definitely continues the good work of pulling at the heartstrings and like putting us in uncomfortable situations. So we'll talk about all of that. Let's see here. Who do we want to like dig into first? Because everybody's going through stuff in these episodes. Well,
it's
April,
your choice, Alex.
I'm trying to think.
Where do we begin? I mean,
right?
We have like Grace. We have Hazel, who apparently she can control her like little emotion thing, which is kind of nice. Like her shape shifting, whatever. So that's kind of interesting. And I think that like helps. Also, I was under the impression that Simon knew she was a null at the end of episode 5, but maybe I missed something. I don't remember.
No, he was inside the car, so he didn't see anything.
Yeah. So, gosh, there's so much.
Yeah,
Simon...
I mean, well, at the end of episode 5, we get the reveal that Hazel is a turtle, and episode 6 begins right there, and it immediately like swerves with the detail that she is confused and why this is happening. She doesn't.
She didn't know that she was a turtle. I did not see that coming. I thought she was pretending to be human to blend in, but no, she just legit didn't know that part of her was turtle.
Yeah, that definitely felt like the leading theory at the time, and so like that's a nice twist to get through pretty quickly at the beginning of the episode. And as it goes on, we learn more about her identity through Amelia, who shows up. And as it turns out, Amelia reveals that Hazel is part of her efforts to recreate Ulrich, that dead guy. So that I believe that confirms the hybrid theory that I was throwing out last week, that like it's like sort of a combination of human and null, because like she mentioned something like it was just a handkerchief, which to me like says, oh, human DNA, like that's the
right, yeah,
we're doing here. So this is what happened. It hurts when she Hazel's like, but I'm Hazel, and Amelia's just like debatable, like just like,
she really sounded like one in that moment. It was very upsetting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your guys' feelings with what's going on with Amelia and Hazel here, Michelle?
I mean, I was kind of shook. I mean, I love the fact that like both Simon and Grace are kind of like, oh, like you cloned a boyfriend. Oh, that's kind of weird. Like, yeah, that's like kind of sketchy that you've been doing this, Amelia. But I mean, I think it's really interesting that Amelia is just like, she's been on this train for 33 years. She doesn't remember the minutia of like which clone she made when or what girl she saved 7 years ago. Like she doesn't remember any of that stuff, but it's had such a pivotal impact on the other people. And like, I think that's really interesting as a juxtaposition. And I also think it's really interesting that like Hazel it seems like her turtle powers only come out when she's really upset or angry, which, like, honestly feels very in line with, like, Steven and Steven Universe Future. Like, that's literally what his peak power was. It's a visual manifestation of showing, like, how you need to control emotions and, like, what really high energy, often negative emotions can manifest as this, like, alternative form, basically. And I think that's a really interesting visual trick. It does really hurt me that Hazel has to physically learn to get this under control and, like, kind of, like, learn from Grace how to lie about how she's feeling and kind of lie to Simon. Like, she's 6 years old. She shouldn't have to worry about this, but here we are. And this is, like, kind of a life or death situation for her. And I think that's just really sad to see. Like, Hazel, these episodes are so tough for her. And she was so happy before. Everything has just gone downhill since Tuba probably died. I'm still questioning that, but I mean,
real Tuba truther here.
Seem a little more definitive, but I mean, it's rough. I mean, I am kind of impressed that she figured out how to get it under control so quickly after just barely finding out this was even a part of her. But she's been full of surprises the whole time. She seems like the most competent 6-year-old I've ever met. So maybe anything's just possible with Hazel.
Yeah, it is kind of telling that she lived with Tuba for who knows how long. She never had any of this, like, stress upon her. It's just when she finally meets the humans that she actually came from is when she finally has to experience all these terrible things. Maybe there's a message there for humankind.
Maybe.
Teach them to lie young.
Well, yeah, that's one thing that you got to do to keep the peace, I guess.
Yeah. No, and I was gonna say it like Hazel's very impressive. Like, just because, like Michelle was saying, the fact that she kind of has to hide her emotions and go along or play along with, like, what's happening. So she could, because again, it's a life or death situation. And I'm also kind of glad that, like, I mean, she loses, like, some of her emotions every now and then. But I like that for the most part she has it under control, simply because, like, we don't really have time to, like, focus on her trying to rein that part of herself in. So I mean, it kind of, I don't know. It is so sad that, like, Grace had to be like, you have to lie. Like, that's not a good message to send. Like,
oh, Grace.
Just push your feelings down as far as you can.
Conceal, don't feel, Hazel. That's your lesson for this chunk of the episodes.
That new voice you're hearing is Maddie Potter, who's just joined us. Maddie, what were your feelings when we see Hazel and Amelia get together and that whole reveal is happening?
Let me get myself back in that moment. I've kind of had a dramatic day.
Here's more for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I think that it was kind of how I expected Grace's story to go. I think the only thing that surprised me is the way that Grace reacted at the very end to Hazel, to kind of rejecting her at the very end there for Simon's sake. It seemed like for like presentation's sake. I think that Hazel is still the same precious bean she was the whole time, and I love her slowly just being like, this is me. Why should I be upset about this? Like, like, you're saying it's bad. I'm just scared my body's changing, but I'm not scared because this isn't me. This feels like me still. And I found that very real. Like, is that what we're talking about? We're talking about
Well, I did want to bring up, last week we talked a lot about, like, the different metaphors that you could pull out of how Hazel's being treated by Grace and Simon. Do you believe that any of that changes, or if there's something added by this reveal?
I think I talked about how, I'm sure I did, because I always talk about it, how this very much feels like a trans type allegory. where it's like this character has this like a lot of trans people who transition decide to go stealth, which means they don't tell people. They don't tell people they're trans. They just, like, for the listeners, you've probably run into a lot of trans people who just haven't told you, and they just looked like cis people. And that's kind of the situation Hazel's in. Obviously, through a lot of allegory and a lot of different situations here, but she's in this situation where she looks like a kid, a normal kid, but she is not. She's not a passenger. She's not a human, even, as far as we can tell. But she's in this situation where she's being told that she's not allowed. Like she's in this situation where she's being told that, like, she'll be treated okay as long as she doesn't reveal this part of herself to everybody else. And Grace is like, I accept you, but not everyone else will, so we have to hide this. And that's a very... It really tied into how I felt about her before, and it, like, before these 3 episodes, and it really makes me feel my heart go out to her so much more, especially because we see a lot of emotional depth for Hazel these 3 episodes.
Right. The hiding aspect is definitely a new one that's introduced in this group, and definitely plays into that. And speaking of emotional depth, I do want to highlight the campfire car, like, because a big part of that is, in addition to her identity, it also, like, deals with, like, dealing with the loss of a loved one. This, like, whole big part of that episode is that she is very insistent on wanting a funeral for Tuba, and it like slowly builds up to, like, where Simon is disgusted and leaves them be in peace for at least a little bit, and you get this beautiful segment where they're up in the tree together, and Hazel talks about what Tuba meant to her, and gets Grace to acknowledge some stuff as well. And then, like, you have the shot of the sunset and all the trees going out, and you got, as Hazel is singing the lullaby, there's this good shot of that begins from behind her head and, like, slowly rotates around to her face.
My God, that's such a beautiful shot.
Yeah, it's just like that whole scene is just, like, done with such care, and, like, it just it's moving to see a child as young as Hazel react to this kind of, in a sense, but healthfully to the passing away of someone. Like, at the very beginning, like, you also have, like, Hazel, like, struggling with it at first. Like, is it because I'm not good? Like, why is this happening? And Grace has to be comforting. So, like, so I really love this episode because, like, it has a contained theme that goes throughout of, like, how to properly grieve, and it really hit me hard. I don't know about you guys, if there's anything you want to add with how Hazel went through that in that episode.
I thought that it was, like, there's a lot of times where we're covering stuff and it's like, I can't believe this was 11 minutes long. And most of the time when we say that, it's like, there's just a lot of stuff packed in there. This one, it's like, I can't believe this is 11 minutes long because it's such an emotional roller coaster and there's not a lot going on. It's just one plot thread. Like, we're just going, essentially, we comfort Hazel and then we're going to do Tuba's funeral. And that's pretty much it. And it just takes you for such a wild ride of emotions. And I personally think the most striking shot, besides like instead, like obviously the spinning shot is just gorgeous, but, like, there's this shot where we see straight on Hazel crying, and Grace is, like, just off screen, and you just start to see, like, drops of tears falling off, but we don't see her face. And it's just something about the way they framed it just hit me really hard. The way you realize that Grace has been affected by this in a very similar way that the audience has.
Yeah. And even, like, because, Hazel gives the eulogy and then she asks Grace, to say something as well. And just like Grace in her portion of it, she starts off very, like, hesitant and says, like, oh, like, I didn't really know her very well. I mean, which is true. But then, like, she talks about, more of, like, I guess the emotional impact that I guess Tuba has kind of had on her as well. Like, yeah, like, she's always been nice to her, and, like, she was there for Hazel. And so I think that, like, just like that transition in her speech is like, there's something so deep about it. And I can't find words to like properly like describe it, because it's so like deep, even though like she's talking about someone that, again, she barely knows, but it just kind of hits you in the way that she is talking about Tuba.
Yeah, there's a moment when Grace, like, actually her voice kind of breaks, and that's where I started, like, legit crying, because, like, if Grace is gonna start crying, like, there's no saving me, and it is, like, incredibly emotional and sad, and just, I was really kind of wondering about, like, the birds being such a big part of these shots, too. Like, obviously there's something to that, right? Like, I was too overcome in the moment, but there probably is more with the birds there. There's probably a reason.
Well, so what I guess noticed is that there was 4 birds, right? And so 3 of them flew off, but then one of them was left behind. So, and there was 4 people that we were following, and then Tuba is now left behind. So there's something very like it's like a visual, like, I don't know, because we didn't already know Tuba was gone, but here we are, like, getting it like played out in a different sense. So
yeah, I like that.
And also in that eulogy, she talks about, like, she's grateful that the Tuba's daughters left Tuba behind because Hazel needed Tuba as well. So, like, there's also like a little bit of cyclical nature.
Oh man!
And when she talks about, like, she's like, "Oh, I'm sure Tuba's like with her children, and that must make her happy." And I was like,
"Oh my god!"
Take my heart.
The whole thing with the birds, the whole, like, the mom and the baby birds just destroyed me.
Part of me wondered if Tuba was supposed to be the mom bird, but I do like April's take that the bird that was left behind was Tuba, because they did essentially leave her behind because she can't follow them.
I thought that the bird left behind was supposed to be Hazel.
I don't know. There's a lot of ways to read the birds.
I'm not saying anything's wrong here. It's just there's a lot of, like, metaphor and emotion here. Like, you can read a lot into this in the way you prefer. Like, I think I think a lot of the scene is. I think a lot of it depends on what you think the saddest part of the scene is. Because I think there's also, like, allegories here to, like, Grace, because I feel like Grace is connecting with this too in a lot of ways, because she feels like she's alone.
Yeah. Well, and she's sort of like leaving behind the person that she used to be as she continues forth with Hazel. Like, I mean, she's lying to Simon, which is obviously something that she hasn't done before, or, like, or at least that's the impression that I'm getting from it. But then, like, she's, like, being nice to a Noel, and that's totally outside of her character, so.
Yeah, this scene is also pivotal in the overall story because, like, it does seem like it signals a change in Grace's view. Like, her first sentence is, "Well, Tuba was important to Hazel." It's like first, like, still, like, keeping some distance, but, like, then, like, as the tears go, it's like, no, like, Tuba was brave and she did help us. So it's like a realization of the Knoll actually helping them, and so as it goes on, we continue to see that in the form of Grace protecting Hazel throughout this, as well as a growing anger towards Simon throughout these episodes as well. We see her snap at Simon multiple times. There's the swerve at the end where Grace does reject Hazel, and Simon satisfyingly grins behind her, which is just so disturbing to me. But so how are we feeling with, like, where Grace ends up after these episodes? So we are seeing the empathy, but also, like, at the very end we get, like, a small turn. How are you guys feeling about her journey right now?
Okay, are any of us buying that when she called her a no? Like, obviously that's a part of her plan to keep her
No.
safe. Like, that's not fooling anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it, but it's still like she said that to Hazel's
it does
face.
hurt. It does hurt, but like these are her options now. The jig is up.
Yeah.
Like she's gotta find a new tactic to keep her safe, which sucks, but it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I didn't buy it for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
For the first second, did you buy it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not even then. Like I was like, I see what you're doing here, Grace. I'm onto you. Like, but I mean, I get it at the same time. Like, she's doing what she has to keep Hazel safe. And if that's like the turn of events, then, you got to be quick on your toes.
One thing that really shook me about Grace is like, because I felt like there were 3 ways this was going to go down once she realized that Hazel was a denizen, and the fact that she like embraced her right away at the start of episode 6, like to the point where like Hazel asks her if she's mad at her, and her immediate gut reaction is like, why would you even say that? Even though like she straight up told Hazel in the last episode, like, denizen/gnolls are nothing, like they don't matter, like trust me, I know. Like for her to have those 2 very contradictory thoughts at once, because Hazel is a person, she's completely won over by her at this point, and she doesn't see her as an other. She sees her as like someone who is the same as her. Like it's just like, wow, this is like such a turn. She's come a long way, honestly.
Yeah. Great. Also, another detail with Grace is she is no longer willing to look at her arm, or at least not publicly. We have that moment in the cave where Simon like shows off his number and then grabs Grace's arm, and Grace has to immediately pull.
The way you said it.
I blocked it. I blocked it out of my memory because I was so angry. I was like, "You do not touch her, sir!" Like.
Yeah, I think Hazel speaks for us all with breaking rocks.
Yeah, and then Hazel's like throwing the rocks and like smashing them, and she's like, "I don't care. I want him to see." And I'm like, "No, you don't, sweet baby girl." But also,
my shell will protect me when I fight him off. I was like, "Oh my god." Hazel.
I love Hazel.
I know, like she really does. She has like that child. She's so like she has the childlike innocence about her, and she's protective of Grace in the same sense that Grace is protective of her. And I love that they have that like mutual, like, I don't know, like friendship, that it goes both ways for them. I think that's like, it takes a lot to find that in another human, I think, or another person, thing, whatever.
All inclusive. Yeah.
I also think it's still really impressive that Hazel, the character, really just sounds like a kid. She speaks like a kid. Like, even though she's really smart.
It's such a big deal. So many people write kid dialogue so awful, and Hazel feels like so amazing. It's kind of crazy. I want to know how this was achieved.
Yeah.
Who is it? Is it like a kid that's voicing Hazel?
Yeah,
that's even crazier. Like, that doesn't make it more like that doesn't make it less impressive. It makes it more impressive that they got an actual kid to do this.
I want to talk about Simon's rage in these episodes.
All right, go, Alex. You got feelings.
Yeah,
go off.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so it builds up very well because the campfire car is impressive and like how like creepy it feels. Like it immediately begins with Grace like telling Simon off, and he's like, "Oh, are you pulling rank?" Like it feels like the first legitimate threat, and then, like as it goes on, like you can feel like the tension rising, and by the end, like Simon has this like weird interaction with Hazel. It's like, I'm gonna make you a character in my book.
Oh my god, that was so
yeah. It's so like that episode sets up like the weird energy going on. Then like as it goes on, Simon gets more physical, like grabbing Grace to check on her arm and stuff. Later, he goes to the cat. We'll talk about the cat a little bit later, but like focusing on Simon specifically, he uses phrases. She's not acting like she should, and she's shutting me out, which is like such incel language.
I said this on my review. I was like, wow, it's very like incel energy you have right now, Simon. It's true.
Yeah, it's just so disturbing when like stuff like that comes out of a male character, like right after you've seen them like be physical with the female character, and then like in Hey Ho Whoa, like it continues on where like there's like a brief detente when like Grace is like, I trust you, and like Simon like gets his last blush for a while, I think, and later rages at Grace for like wanting to wait, and also like grabs her by the shoulders, which is and so like it ends in like a sort of, you see his heart break for good when he sees the footage of We Won't Tell Simon. But just all in all, like the build up of seeing Simon slowly lose his control on his emotions towards Grace was effective. It was also a little it made me feel very uncomfortable. I wanted to lay out that progression. What do we do with Simon?
What can we do?
Yeah, I mean,
Simon
the cat even has that line where she. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
I think my internet was like buffering or something. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what can we do with Simon at this point? Simply because, like, he's getting very like off his rocker, and even like his interaction with Amelia is very like aggressive, and he is like the perfect like personification of like that cult mentality that we've kind of talked about already. But he, like Amelia is literally sitting there saying like, I'm the person that you've been like worshiping, like, and he and like, yeah, and you're wrong, and he just refuses to accept that. Like that's a very scary, and a person in that like mindset is very scary like to deal with. And so like, and we already know what he's capable of. Like how do we save Simon? We can't. I don't know if we can.
I am going to take the side, and I'm not like playing devil's advocate. I'm going to take the side of Simon deserves a little more sympathy than we've been giving him so far.
Ooh, you're going to get into exactly where I think you are.
And
you know what? I agree with that as well.
Well, let's let Maddie express her point.
Yeah. I made this point last week that he was very traumatized by nulls, and I don't think that's like. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure it's clear that like when I say someone's traumatized, that's not a free pass. That's not like they can do whatever they want because they were hurt. What I'm saying is that it gives us an understanding of how he became this way. I can still say that I don't think Simon's a good person while still saying I understand how he got there and this is why. And I don't think he's just purely an evil person. It's just this is where he ended up, and a lot of things caused that. But I also think what happened this week specifically, we've kind of bypassed his trauma and moved on to so when trauma happens, there's this thing where people who've been traumatized fear that trauma happening again, that thing happening again. And that's what Simon's doing right now. He's trying to stop Grace from leaving him like the cat left him before. And that is a very specific fear. And he is not acting logically or rationally right now. He is acting on a fight or flight instinct. And that's pretty much the only thing guiding him. All he cares about, and he doesn't care how it happens. This isn't a romantic thing for him. This isn't he's interested in Grace thing right now. It's just he wants to keep the status quo how it is, because otherwise it's the same as the cat again. And that's what his brain is telling him. And from my perspective, they're really showing this very well. They're showing this sign of his trauma very well. And this is not like an easy thing to show, like in general, let alone in 11-minute episodes. And it's just, there's a lot happening. And I still think that Simon made other mistakes that extend past his trauma. But again, he still is a young person, and he still is someone who's trying to figure out what he wants to do. And whether he was brainwashed by someone else or not, like he was brainwashed kind of by himself. He brainwashed himself because he wanted to believe something else instead of believing the cat was a person that left him and hurt him. He chose to believe that the cat was nobody, that the cat never cared about him because that's easier. That's easier to understand. That's like when someone's hurt you, it's easier to believe that that person is just a robot and they were programmed to hurt you. Not that they just are a person and they have reasons too. And I think this whole season is gonna revolve around the cat and Simon in the end. And because they've been very much setting up that his trauma is driving him completely still.
So I have a thing I want to add to that because I completely agree. I think on top of the cat, I feel like Simon and Grace's relationship is so pivotal to this season. And like, while maybe he does like have some amount of like romantic attraction, like I agree with Maddie that like the majority of what's happening here is like, when he was in a moment of crisis, the cat left him. He's on this train. He's 10 years old. He meets Grace. Grace becomes like not just his best friend, not just a trauma coping mechanism, but essentially like the stability in his life. Like they have been together for, I'm assuming like 8 years now. Like she represents like the apex. Like she represents everything they've been able to build together. Like she's the one who is like better at talking to people in their job. She is the leader. He looks up to her. Like if he lost her, he would lose like everything, not just like her as a friend, but like literally his entire life would crumble. And the thing, like Alex, you were saying you were noticing that Simon was like increasingly angry these episodes. But to me, I felt like, how does Simon have this patience? Because like Grace has never yelled at him like this before. And she's yelling at him like increasingly often. And like, this must be such a shock. And he keeps apologizing and he keeps just doing what she says until he reaches a breaking point. And like, at that point, I realized it's because he is so scared of losing her. His strategy is like, he will backtrack for as long as he can with like the fear of that. Like the risk of losing her is just too great because too much is tied to Grace. Like it's very unhealthy. It's really not good, but like, this is what has happened in the wake of just like their meeting at the time they did with the cat leaving. And it's just, when I saw him cry at the end of the episode, it's because like Maggie said, it's like, it's such a betrayal. He feels betrayed the same way he did with the cat. And there is no nuance for him with this, the same way there wasn't really nuance with the cat. And it's, in a way, it's still very heartbreaking, even though we really have every reason to hate Simon right now. And he's doing a lot of things that are just downright terrifying. Like, my heart still does kind of break for the guy because, like, it's just, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish he'd been able to, like, handle things differently, maybe. I don't know. But, like, this is where we are now.
And I agree with what you were saying about it. It didn't really come off as anger to me. It came off as just fear. It's not the same.
It's panic. Like,
yeah, it's panic. That's a good word for it.
Panicking at this point.
Anger, he wasn't angry. He just didn't know how to react to anything happening right now.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess the other thing we don't really, like, a piece of information that we don't really have either is, like, we know that the cat left him, or, you know, left him, but, like, what did he do after that? Like, you know what I mean? So, I guess he was just alone by himself, because we don't know how long, passed between that time and then whenever he met Grace, do we?
No, we don't.
No,
So.
I would assume not
left.
that long, because, like, if the gun was, like, just there pretty soon after, like, I don't think he would have survived, like, a year without Grace showing up. So, like, maybe a few days, maybe, like, a couple weeks, but I feel like it wasn't a very long amount of time. Which makes sense for why he, like, grabbed onto her so, because, like, she was the immediate next thing he could move on to.
Yeah.
And she was a person. Like, he was like, why is Grace different? He wanted to justify to himself, why will Grace be different?
Exactly, yes, because
it wasn't just
a creature.
It wasn't just that Grace was nice to him. It was he was trying to get himself to trust again.
I agree.
Yeah, and then there's on top of that, it's also showing in here that the cat didn't know how to react to any of this too.
Yeah.
The cat didn't know how to
She has some
confront.
good lines
Mhm.
about.
Like, I'm not saying the cat did the right thing. I'm not saying the cat is the victim here, but I'm also saying that Simon's kind of brushing off the fact that the cat didn't leave him. The cat was running for her life too.
Mm.
And it sucks, but you can understand how someone would, when running for your life, you don't check if the other person's there until you're safe. That's
Yeah.
the first rule when you're in danger. Make sure you're safe first. She made a mistake afterwards. She made a mistake when she didn't go back. But for all she knew, she might have thought Simon was already dead.
She may not have physically been able to go back either.
And she is just a cat. I mean, what's a cat gonna do against a
Yeah.
gnome? Let's be real.
But also, like you were saying, April, we don't know how she moved ahead of him. Like, it could have been a car situation where, like, it cut them off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many levels here where by the time the cat realized Simon was alive, it might have already been to the point where the cat felt so awful about not going back to him, like, without realizing that he was still there. That, how do you confront that?
Yeah.
Like,
and we do see the cat trying to make amends, like, where she can now. Like, she is trying to, like, give him advice. She, like, doesn't get mad when he keeps intruding on her house. Like, she's taking it in full swing because she does clearly feel guilty, but she also tells him, like, I am who I am. I can't give you more than that, which is, like, the realest thing I've ever heard, because it's not what you want to hear when you want help, but it's really like where most people are in their lives. Like, they can only give you so much, and they're gonna make mistakes, and they are full of flaws.
Well, and the other thing too is because Simon is very much has the mentality that, like, you know, the cat was a null, therefore nulls, you know, are bad. It almost doesn't matter what the cat says to him too at a certain point, because there's nothing, like, she literally cannot not be a null. So it's who
she is.
Yeah, it's who she is. And so, you know, it's one of those, but I mean, it is very obvious that she does feel bad about what happened. And again, you know, there's pieces missing of the puzzle. Like, how long was it until, like, they realize that they're alive, you know, that kind of thing as well, because it could have been like a couple of years and then the cat and Simon came across each other. And so maybe at some point the cat, like, also did her own grieving of Simon and then had to move on. Yeah. And it also seems very much like Simon is still grieving the loss of the cat at the same time.
Definitely.
Because, and, you know, again, because of the trauma that happened. And so it very much gets projected onto Grace because she's, you know, she's his rock, you know.
Yes, she's everything to him.
Yeah, she is,
and that's not healthy, but it's what it is.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's like, it's not good, but, like, that's where we are.
But even like, and he's even like, he's also projecting his, like, I guess, like, insecurities about it and his panic onto her. He's saying things like, she's not acting like she should. Well, what is she's supposed to be acting like?
And that's,
you know,
that's what the cat says, which is so good because the cat even tells him, like, what do you mean she's not acting like she should? She's not like some, like, soldier in your, like, toy. And like, remember when he found that little toy soldier in, like, her back room in the cabin episode? And then, like, you think about all the toy soldiers he had in the first episode in his room, like,
miniatures.
It's literally, I think, like, for him, because of his trauma, it's his way of, like, keeping things contained so they can never leave. Like, it's his sense of control, and he kind of has personified that to an extreme by assuming that people like Grace should always stick around and should never, like, you know, like, it's kind of what Alex is saying too. Like, as much as we can empathize with Simon's situation, he is still exhibiting a lot of really controlling, scary behavior, and it's all culminating right now in the show.
Well, and looping back to something that Maddie mentioned earlier, like, I mean, the titles of these books have not been necessarily like super important to the overall theme, but book 3 is titled Cult of the Conductor, and, like, a lot of this stuff is very similar to like why people join cults in the first place, because they need an explanation to things that are hard to explain. They need they feel that they need some kind of some status quo, some control to so that stuff is predictable to them. And when they are confronted with information that contradicts what they have learned as the way things are supposed to go, they react very very uncomfortably to it, because they need something to be in place for life to make sense. Otherwise, it's like you're losing control of your situation.
Yeah.
So you see all those behaviors reflected in Simon, because of how the Apex has built itself up over the years. So now his worldview is being confronted, he's not in a position right now to handle that very well. So and this is, as you guys have mentioned, this is all reflecting on how he deals with Grace, also drifting away from those mindsets.
Before we move on, I wanted to comment on one last thing about Simon. That's that, like you mentioned that, I forget who was it April or Michelle mentioned the toy soldier thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. That thing is, and I think it's just so ironic, because it's becoming increasingly clear that he views the members of Apex as
soldiers,
not people. They're not real life people to him. They're just like how he made the cat into this thing that wasn't real, so that she made sense to him, so that the thing she did to him made sense. He's doing this to the people that aren't the cat. He's doing this in such a way that he wants everyone to be trustworthy by not being people, by not having free will, by not being able to do things other than the things he thinks they're capable of doing. Because if they are able to do things that he can't think of, then they can betray him, then they can break his trust. And so he views every single person in the Apex as someone who's not real, that doesn't have agency, which is pretty ironic considering he's really mad at the Nulls for not being people and not having agency and not being these things that can control their destiny. And the truth of the matter is, he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care at all about whether the Nulls are people or not, because he doesn't care if these passengers are people or not.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. They get into a lot, these episodes.
I mean, it's also hard to say, because, I don't think we've ever seen Simon interact with one of the Apex kids. It's always Grace. Because Simon doesn't really know how to talk to them on a kid level, and they're all so much younger than the two of them are.
We saw him interact with kids, I think, 2 times. He told Hazel, I'll put you in my play, or my book. And then he told another kid, I'll use this null you gave me as
for my
my
battle soldiers. It does all come back to him. It is very kind of self-centered thinking of people being useful.
Yes, he only ever acknowledges the other members of Apex if they help him, and he acknowledges Grace because, like we said, Grace is his rock. And other than that, he kind of, even in the beginning, he doesn't really, like you said, he doesn't interact with anyone other than Grace, except when he's kind of forced to.
That's that's so upsetting, you guys.
What, that we're going this deep on it, and it's there?
He acknowledges Tuba when she's useful, and then when she's not useful anymore.
Well, that's so true, because they have that real moment, and she opens up to him about her kid Bugle, and he does seem genuinely sort of touched by that, but nope. Then he just does a Mufasa, or he does a Scar. It is just terrible.
But it makes sense, though. Because
it does make sense. Just saying it's still terrible.
In that moment, he's alone with Tuba. He's not performing to anybody. He doesn't have to be somebody for Grace. He's just trying to survive this car. And then the second he's back with Grace, he thinks he has to do this. He thinks he has to. I don't know.
I mean, part of me wonders if he also, in his own way, thinks he's really doing Hazel and Grace a solid by getting rid of Tuba, so they don't get too attached, so that they don't feel the same crushing disappointment that he felt when he got when the cat left him. I do think that's also in play. I feel like he is honestly trying to help in some ways that aren't completely selfish to him, and that's just the way his mind is working through these things right now.
I think there's 2 truths: that he wants help. He wants to help Grace, and by extension Hazel, because Grace cares about Hazel. And he also, when he's alone with Tuba, views Tuba as a person.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Because I think also that's why Simon's panicking. He realizes he killed a person.
Yeah.
Like an actual person.
I think the other thing too is that he has very much tied this like resentment of Noel's to Grace as well, which is probably why he's, freaking out, because she is being kind to a Noel, and that's not how he knows. Like, that's not life as he knows it. So
that's true.
Because, even Grace was, she was more kind and open to Tuba, before. And he saw that, like, she didn't hide that from him or anything. And so for him to sort of witness that behavior, it's probably like very triggering for him to see, Grace acting in a way that he's unfamiliar with when it comes to Knowles. And then even so far, as to protect Hazel, like, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in for someone who's had, so much trauma. And that's only the trauma that we know about.
Yeah. I think the question now isn't whether Simon is, like, sympathetic. It's whether he's going to be redeemed. Because I think that I understand him. I understand how he got here. But I don't think that means he's going to survive the season.
Yeah.
I really wonder, because they spent so much more time on Simon than I expected. Because, like, before we were following Grace so much. And in these last couple episodes, we really did, like, spend just time with Simon and, like, the cat. Which... I mean, that's got to mean something. Whether or not he's redeemed, I think it's interesting that the show was, like, spending so much time with him, period, and fleshing him out. Even though we're not on his side. Like, it's a choice they made, and I wonder where it's going to lead.
And it's also important to note that there's a 3-beat here. Like, we've had 3 seasons, and each season we get an explanation for what the numbers mean. And 2 times they did leave. We got in the first season that Tulip got her number to 0. She left the car. In the second season, we got Jesse's number to 0. He left the car. But Lake wanted the number 2, and we proved that she can leave the car too. Mm-hmm. And then the third season, we're bringing this up again. We're bringing up again that the numbers are supposed to go to 0. They're supposed to. They're supposed to. It's not. This time when Amelia brings it up, it's not. This is what happens. It's they're supposed to do that, and it's very much like phrased as like set in stone, and I think that means we're going to see something weird at the end of this season.
Well, and Amelia was also, or no, it was the cat who said to him, like, why do you think Grace's number is broken? Maybe you just don't like it. It's it's doing what it's supposed to.
Yeah, that's true. The cat does say that,
because as far as Simon and Grace have been concerned, that the numbers are meant to go up. They're not meant to go down. And they've not ever had interest in them going down. So, and maybe the cat and Simon, because the cat obviously knows that the numbers are supposed to go down. But maybe she never had that opportunity to tell Simon. And maybe at the time, whenever she had been able to, he didn't believe her simply because she's a null. And that relationship had already been severed. So it's really, it's just tragic. And I feel for him. And and yes, he's acting in very crazy behavior, but there's so much as to why he's doing it. And I mean, I don't know that he's going to survive this season either. I mean... I hope that he gets a redemption. I really do. I would hate for him to be out, to sort of end up being the villain but
he killed Popo last season, so anything goes.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also think that this season, I think there's a purpose to showing Amelia making amends. I think there's a point to that.
Oh, for sure.
I think that part of that is that we're leading into seeing how Simon thinks he has to make amends for what he's done.
I don't know. I feel like for me, like, Amelia is the one who's going to be mentoring Grace more than Simon. Simon might be too far gone, but Grace is the one who's, like, asking Amelia questions, like, whereas Simon's just rejecting everything she says. It's like, oh, she's brainwashing you. I think, if anything, Grace is the one who's going to get that redemption through Amelia than Simon at this point, honestly.
Well, I honestly, I can't see Simon being open to it.
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
that,
right?
that
He's kind of too
mentorship.
far gone.
Well, I'm not saying
Because-
that he's going to get mentorship. I'm just saying he's going to do something in a similar vein to Amelia, that like Grace is going to get off the train. I think that's going to happen. But I think that Simon's going to face redemption in some other way that's not just clear cut and just simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to see if there's something that happens that pushes Simon to want to
Right,
make
he needs
amends.
that
Yeah.
push because he doesn't have that push yet.
Well, and I'm afraid of what that push is going to be, because even when you present Simon with the truth, he very much doesn't want to hear it, because he seems very resistant to change.
Yeah. Yes, and we've already like established through all this analysis why that is, but the point remains, like, if anything, invading Grace's memory and realizing that she's been keeping this secret is probably what's gonna throw their whole relationship into stark like tumultuous, like, just I don't really know how they're gonna repair this. I think it might be possible, but it sure isn't looking great right now.
I think I figured out how I misframed what I was saying. What I mean is that I think that we just don't have time, Michelle. That's what, like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think this show gives a lot of care to the characters in it. And I think that they're going to acknowledge, like, I think a lot of media, like Darth Vader in Star Wars, like, it's like, oh, he redeemed himself at the end. And it's like, it's kind of like a cop-out, though, that, like, he, quote-unquote, redeems himself then dies. I don't think this show wants to do that. I don't think the show wants to, like, give the character a simple redemption. Say, like, they're good now. They're better. Like, I think it's going to show that this is a journey for Simon, even if he chooses to take that first step, which is the hardest one. Amelia took that first step, and she seems to be getting better. And that's what the point of the train is. But she made that decision on her own, and I think that's what we're going to see. We're not going to see Simon get better. We're not going to see Simon be better. We're going to see Simon take the first step to taking action towards that.
With like a much longer, like, prolonged experience for him outside
that we might not
season
have.
conclusion, you mean. Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see him
If
wandering the
he
train in
survives,
season
then
5.
maybe
or
that's
whatever.
like, yeah.
Like,
Can
I
we
could
talk
just see
about Amelia? I really want to talk about Amelia.
Wait, can I just say one thing? 'Cause I just had the perfect image of Simon, like, you know how, like, all the passengers leave through a car door? A train door? Like, what if he just leaves through a normal train door of the train, like Grace does, and he's like, I'm just gonna go walk this way, and I'm leaving, and that's just how it ends. That'd be perfect for me. Sorry, Amelia.
Yeah, so I think that concludes our Simon coverage until we get the next 2 episodes. Briefly, with Simon, just like we had the cat scene, we talked mostly about the cat. I want to mention the cat's name is Samantha. So anybody in the YouTube comments who has been complaining, why are we just saying the cat? There you go, it's Samantha. There, we've acknowledged it.
Wait, were they complaining before
the
we
cat,
knew her name?
The credits literally called her the cat in the first book, so
Yeah.
we were going off of the information.
Right. No, I'm just anticipating that, like, people listening are going to be like, her name is Samantha. They said it in the episode.
No, she will always be the cat.
She's the cat.
Even like Simon and Grace, who have known the cat for an extended period of time, have
Yes.
always called her the cat. And then it's interesting because when Simon called her Samantha, Grace knew immediately that he had gone to see her. So, and I think that's like that telltale sign, and just like because he uses Samantha out of respect for her. And so I think that's like I just love, like, I caught on to that immediately because he called her Samantha, and Grace was just like, you went and saw the cat? Like, ooh.
I will say a little disappointed it's not a French name. I feel like we had established like a whole French vibe with her.
I think it fits her aesthetic that, like,
Yes.
she's being, like, showily French.
Yeah, showily French. I like it.
Yeah.
She went to France like once.
She went to
On a
study
layover.
abroad in
Came back
France.
with an accent. I love that, April.
She's like that one person that went to Spain over the summers that can't stop talking about it.
Didn't even really go there. They just like sat in the airport for a layover. Like,
Okay, Michelle, let's get to Amelia. So I just want to mention, she's definitely more ripped than she was in season one, right?
Yes.
God,
I love it. She's buff. She has like Sarah Connor energy in Tornado. It's so good. Can I gush out?
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Amelia, like, out of nowhere became the most relatable character to me simply because she's, like, so done with everything. She's been here for 33 years. Nothing matters. She's just trying to make amends. But also, she's incredibly enabled to, like, socialize with children. And, like, I feel that to my core. Like, Grace makes it look so easy. But it is hard to, like, talk to children and know what to do. Especially if you're not, like, super fond of them. And Amelia just has that energy all the time. And it's just like, I think it's amazing, and I'm like low-key standing her. I'm divorcing from my mind the fact that she's messed up the train for a really long time, probably, because like this Amelia I'm like 100% on board with.
Like on board a train.
Yeah, on board.
Are you on the Amelia train?
Yeah.
Hype for the Amelia train. It's leaving the station. Get on.
I also relate to her being very reluctant to accept children being gushy. That's very much a mood.
Yeah.
I'm not. I felt a little disappointed that she's apparently bad at cooking eggs. I feel like cooking eggs is a thing you should know how to do.
I mean,
Like eggs, then you just never cook them, like me.
Yeah.
She could have just passed through a car that had eggs. I also think that this brings up a good point of that there's, during the whole time Amelia's there's this thing that's happening where people are calling people adults or kids. And there's a heavy like emphasis on that, where Simon's like, we don't trust adults like Amelia, and Amelia is looking at Simon and calling him a kid, and it's clearly making him mad that she's just calling him a kid. It just very much like contradicts what we're saying on screen, and I enjoy that.
Yeah. Amelia's also like that alpha because they treat numbers as like currency in their order, their rank, and Grace was the leader in part because she had the highest number. But Amelia's number is like crazy high, so it's kind of like messing with his sense of authority too, probably.
But it has gone down since we last saw it.
Like apparently, look at that thing. It's like over her neck and her other arm.
Well, and I love that she's just like, the number is so big, like there's no point in even keeping track anymore. I just love like her, like she is so like over humans too. She just like, it's not so much that she's like doesn't know like how to talk to people. It's just that she is so used to, I guess, like not talking to real humans, and so she's just like, oh well, was that wrong? Like, I don't, like, she doesn't even care if it's wrong. Like, she's very straightforward, and I love that attitude about her. Like, there's no, and then she's not really like super emotional either. It's really great.
Well, if you recall, like season one, like that finale was about, she was kind of like just trying to escape her own life and like recreating the glory days, and when that doesn't happen, I guess the next step is just forgetting that you ever had a life outside the train. Yeah. So we're seeing the steps of advanced train. I mean, it's in a way similar to what the Apex are doing, right? Like they're creating their own life inside the train because they no longer remember what it was like outside. Yeah. We still have yet, aside from that one dialogue in the debutante car, we still have not heard Simon and Grace really talk about their life before the train. So like, that's like another thing to consider, like leaving the train. It's like, well, like where are they leaving to at this point?
It would be really interesting to know what their trauma was like, or what their problems were before they had this trauma on the train. But I think it's on purpose that we're not seeing that, because they're different people now. The people that they were when they got on the train, the things they need are just completely different now. And I enjoy that we're commenting on the fact that once you're traumatized, you're just a very different person with very different needs. And
well, and I was gonna say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna also say too that like they've been on the train for such a long time that like there isn't a, like, this is their life now. This is like what it is. And so, I mean, it seems like Grace and Simon have, they've been on the train for, 7+ years or whatever. And that's like probably like half their life. And so they may not remember life before the train at this point either, but I mean, they kind of briefly talk about it, but like it's very, very brief. It's just like passing memories almost, like, oh, I remember like this kind of thing. So not versus like, oh, this is like something that's very like defining, like very much defines who I am. Like the train is who they are now.
Yeah, they seem to really not have like much of an emotional connection to their past selves as children, which is super spooky. I mean, I do wonder if, like, I don't know. It seems like Grace honestly might have been put on the train relatively soon after, like because like she talks to a lot about like the not fitting in with the other girls in the dance class because she was new and they didn't invite her for ice cream. And then she, like, as we talked about before, she like twists that to be like, but it's because they were jealous about how cool I am. I could imagine maybe her initial reason for being put on the train, something related to that. But I think Maya's right. At this point, like, their needs are different. And the reason Grace's number is going down now is because her immediate thing is, like, she needs to be able to have empathy for things that aren't human, or at least, like, literally other people. And she is. So the number is going down. So she actually has a shot at leaving. Whereas, like, Simon, maybe he needs to learn the same thing. Maybe he needs to learn something slightly different even. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder if, like, their numbers are still tied to the same, I guess, like, goal as whenever they first got on the train as well. Because
like, be different.
Because maybe, like, Grace didn't necessarily need to learn empathy whenever she first got on the train, but now empathy is what's driving her number to go down, where, I mean, Simon may have been put on the train for a completely different reason, but maybe now, like, he also needs to learn empathy. So I wonder, like, I'm curious about that aspect of, like, the whole number thing is, like, did they have to, like, figure out, like, oh, what did I need whenever I was 7 or whatever?
I don't think so. I think we're on the right track here with the new I guess requirements for the numbers to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what goes through the mind of 1-1, really?
I think
we'll find out in 2 more episodes.
I think Amelia frames it really well, though. 1-1 doesn't see anybody as people, and, like, I think that's interesting that he doesn't see anyone as a person, because it does it does pair with Simon's feelings towards Nulls really interestingly.
No, I know, it's like kind of like on the same wavelength in a weird way. They have more in common than they think.
Yeah, they do, really, and it's very scary and very interesting.
It is revealed that the ejecting of cars is the train cars reacting to the anomalous code that is Hazel walking around. So, the rip to the 1-1 is evil theory, I guess. But
the fact that he didn't even know about them at all is, like, way funnier and way more of a burn to me than that they assumed he was messing with him. It's so, like it is way darker. It's like, oh man, my opinion of 1-1 is, like, not great, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about it here because
it's very possible the last 2 episodes bring him up. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of things we can like begin talking about, like final predictions. But just briefly, are there any things in these episodes you guys want to touch on before we begin wrapping up?
I did appreciate the, like, sprinkled, like, bits of humor in the campfire car, like the one, like, what is it, the lantern being like, is it just lighted out here or is it me? And I was like,
such a dad joke.
It's so good.
I also love the rocks kissing.
The rocks making out. I was like, whoa, okay.
Well, and they were arguing too, so it's like a bit of an angry smooching going on. So
yeah, I love, like, well, where would you have us go? Oh, down by the lake. Like,
you can't see. They were just so upset about it. I loved it.
Anything else?
I really liked the little moment in the campfire car where the rock just goes out.
Oh,
It's because like we saw it in the first we saw it in that first episode. The rocks get lit up when they're like, I think when they're getting hit by other light, essentially. So it's just this really beautiful and tragic moment when she puts it in the shade and it just goes out. And it's really sad. Like, there's so many sad moments in Campfire Car.
It's like Tuba's tombstone. That's what I thought the rock was. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Michelle, any last details from these episodes?
I mean, no.
Okay.
I'm actually drained from the majority of the day doing stuff about this, but I am like really curious how it's gonna get wrapped up. I mean, part of me wonders if Simon's like gonna try to reach the apex first and like use that kid army against.
Well, let's go to final predictions. Yeah. Is that your prediction for that?
Yeah. But the problem with that is like Simon doesn't know how to talk to those kids, and I feel like the second he shows up, like they'd listen to her over him because she's established more relationships with them, even if they're like really shallow and manipulative. They're relationships. So honestly, I'm more worried about Simon being like alive than anything else because like Amelia's there, she's got her belt. Like I feel like Hazel's gonna be fine. But Grace and Simon's relationship's like the biggest thing in jeopardy, I guess. Everything else, like, I feel like it's gonna get worked out somehow.
Okay. April, any final predictions you want to make?
I 100% predict that the relationship between Simon and Grace is going to explode. It's unavoidable at this point. I feel like there's just going to be a lot that comes out of that. I like Michelle's idea of Simon trying to go raise the Apex Kid army, but I feel like at the end of all of this, like one's just going to end up like interjecting and like stopping it in some way, or like he's going to make an appearance and he's going to like intervene in a sense, but I'm not really sure like how. And I don't know what's gonna happen. I think Hazel's gonna be fine. That or she'll like help lead the Apex kids. Because so Grace is definitely leaving this train. So
yeah, Grace gotta go.
Grace, you need to leave. Take Hazel with you.
One wouldn't let Hazel leave though. That's the sucky part about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Maddie, any final predictions?
I don't know if I think I predicted a fair bit with Simon, so I don't really have anything else to say on that topic. But I will say, I think it's really interesting how this show, over the course of 3 seasons, is showing how people can be viewed very differently based on who is seeing them. Specifically, 1-1 in this case, all of our protagonists view 1-1 as very different figures.
Maddie, I hate this. You're blowing up my review hot takes so much today. It's not okay.
Look up Purview Productions on YouTube. Michelle
it's from the Overly Animated channel. It's going straight to
Look up on the Overly Animated channel to see Michelle's takes that I think are wrong.
I spent all day editing this video, and then Maddie comes in and just says all this stuff anyway. Maybe I don't need to post it anymore.
Oh, did I say everything you said? Is
not everything, but like half of it? Low key, yes.
Still post. People are desperate for Infinity Train stuff. They'll like your reactions as well.
We're on the same like Michelle.
Yeah. We are very much on the same reaction. April.
All I want for the 5 episodes is I want Hazel to get at least a couple of hits in on Simon because I think she deserves it.
You wanted to punch him? I love that, Alex.
And I am interested to see if we're gonna do anything with the Hazel Amelia relationship, like because like we set up in episode 8 that's like sort of trying to create Alric, but like there's obviously like a burgeoning mother-daughter dynamic there. So I wonder if we're gonna like go like are they gonna like stay together or whatever once Grace and Simon go to wherever they're going. But I just want Hazel to have a good life, and I hope that
all
happens in some way.
Speaking of that, the moment where she talks about the pancakes to Amelia is just adorable, but also so heartwarming.
Hazel's so good at that stuff. Like, I love the way she cuts the tension of the memorial when she's just like, I need to go to the bathroom. It's like, thank goodness for you. It's like, I didn't know how to feel better, but you created a great segue.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hazel.
And it's such a 6-year-old thing to do.
Yeah. So, with all that, we will be waiting for the final 2 episodes of Infinity Train, Book 3. What are they titled? The Origami Car and the New Apex. New Apex the first one that doesn't end in car?
I think that is.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, those episodes, we'll be back to talk about those next week. Until then, you can find more information about our podcast at overlyanimated.com. As mentioned, you can find Michelle's video review of these episodes at the Overly Animated YouTube channel. You can join us on Discord if you want to chat with us about Infinity Train or any other show we cover here at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us financially via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Cat's House. Thanks, as always, to our Patreon executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, Needle, and Phonician. Besides Infinity Train, we are also covering Owl House with some frequency. We recently did a podcast on Amphibia. We cover a wide variety of shows here. You can also catch our continuing Studio Ghibli rewatch series. We just did Spirited Away, which is a very well-known movie. So if you've watched that, you can check that podcast out as well. A lot of interesting discussion there. But yeah, until then, the podcast train will be back for one more station next week.
Nice.
It's the
that was very smooth of me. Thanks for listening.
It's especially smooth when you call it out.
Yeah, I know.
That's the peak of smooth coolness.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.